Hello, everybody, and welcome to a very spooky episode of the Say Report.
Ooh,
This
high
is your
interest
host.
financing, payday loans, structural damage on a foundational level.
Things that scare me now that I'm 32.
Ooh.
What's going on, everybody? This is Sejohn,
And
Sarowick, host of the Say Report, along with my host companion, Devon Decker.
Devon Decker.
We haven't had a good straight introduction in a while, I think.
No, this is a good straight introduction.
Yeah, but we're here recording week of our very last Halloween episode, our very last October episode, I should say. And we've got some spooks to talk about, at least on my end. I mean, we're getting closer and closer to the holiday, and things are getting weirder and weirder.
Yes.
But yeah.
Before we do that, I'd like to apologize for just not realizing that there was a whole other week of October. So a very special episode is coming on Halloween. Will it be hackers? Will it not be hackers? Who knows? You'll have to listen to find out. I mean, the title's
answer
going
may
to give it away.
terrify you.
But I do want to apologize because Speedgaming Live, that's really where my head was at. And I thought that was the end of this month. I forgot about Halloween and all the other fun things. Forgot about Sejohn's birthday.
Yeah, that happens too at the end of the month. But yeah, Speed Gaming Live was for you last week, huh?
Yeah. Briefly, there's a reason this episode is called Jexi, the Joker, and the competition that wasn't. And it's not just because I've been watching coupling.
So why is it, Devin?
So, okay, so
are you looking for a setup?
I was hoping that you're not Byron Allen? This isn't that comedian show at Byron Allen? I can say it, if I say his name one more time, he appears like Beetlejuice or Candyman. But yeah, so drove down on Wednesday. We picked up Dale from the aquarium at 6 p.m. and proceeded to head down to Herndon, Virginia, because they were very adamant that all competitors needed to be registered before 9 a.m. so that they could distribute information regarding who you'd be playing against at 9 a.m. and get everything started. 9 a.m.
9 a.m. Got it.
9 a.m. So
the witching hour.
So we drove down the night before because it's a 6-hour drive without traffic. But there's always going to be traffic if you're going through something like New York or Baltimore.
Yeah, right.
Plus,
Did
if
you
you
have to
stop,
go to DC? No, you didn't get. You didn't
no,
go that
we
far,
shirked DC. Which we ended up going to DC later. I mean, I have good stories from it, but the competition that wasn't. It's right there in the title. So we get there. We don't check into the hotel until 2 a.m. Just with stops and a little bit of delays. And I have to sleep on a pull-out sofa because it's one king bed and a pull-out sofa.
Okay.
So the rest of the Decker clan is in that king bed and I'm on the sofa, and you could feel the bar. And it's not.
That's how you know it's good. You can tell. Like tomorrow, I'm just gonna be thinking about this bed all day. I can just tell.
Can't wait to flop back into this tomorrow. Got up at 7:30, showered, ready for the day, and then I head over to the hotel where the event is actually happening at, because I got a much better deal at a Marriott because I'm a Marriott Rewards member than at a Hilton, because Paris still hasn't forgiven me for what I said about Simple Life Season 3. And
it needed to be said, though.
It definitely needed to be said. Thank you. As my Nicole Richie, I feel like your approval is all I need.
It also means I'm out the door already. As in season 5.
Yes, that's true. But it's funny because weren't we singing a Lionel Richie song before we started recording?
Yes.
Is Nicole Richie Lionel Richie's child?
Yes, and good callback for fantastic to something that the audience had no connection to, no reference point for.
No, but I'm sure we'll sing "Hello" again. It's the spookiest R&B song.
That's not true at all. But anyway.
But yeah, so we head over to the event. And registration is there, and there's the table for registration, and there ain't nobody there. But there's a bunch of people milling around, like, oh, registration should start soon. It's 8 a.m., which is when registration is supposed to start. Mm-hmm. And everybody, for every tournament, is supposed to be registered by 9 a.m. So,
there's got to be somebody here.
It's got to start. They did registration the night before from 8 p.m. to 11 p.m., but, you know, if you're not getting there till the day of, which
Right.
was a good portion of people who probably aren't going to do that, considering it's adults who are playing in a video game competition.
Yeah, and people have lives outside of this little hobby, actually.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or people who live in the area. Like, so it's there, and no one shows up to that desk till, I'm going to say 9 a.m., but, you know, that's conservative. I mean, volunteers showed up who are working the event, and it's like, oh, are you doing check-in? No, it needs to be a staff member who does that. So staff didn't show up till 9 a.m., which is when we were supposed to register. And registration, not the smoothest process. But then, so I register, and then I go to the room where I'm told to report as someone who's playing Link to the Past, with everybody else who's going to be playing Link to the Past, because we were told to be there at 9 a.m., and we sit there for 2 hours. Let's be honest. I'm being a little hyperbolic. For an hour and 50 minutes. Before someone comes in and goes, does anyone have any information about these 4 runners? No one had any information about those 4 runners. But because 4 people hadn't showed up and registered yet, they were holding moving forward.
No, wait a minute. There's a lot of questions I have about this, but above all, did they come and tell you at any point that that's what was happening, or was this the first you heard of it 2 hours in? Sorry, an hour and 50 minutes in.
An hour and 50 minutes in was the first time that we'd gotten any information regarding, you know, where this was. Now, I mean, it's Speedgaming uses Discord a lot to communicate with people. I've been getting binged all weekend. But the server, I think the server was just having issues, or maybe it was overloaded by so many people in like one area trying to go off of the Washington area server. I'm not sure, but the server didn't work all morning. But, you know, going back, it's not like I had a bunch of missed notifications once the server was back online saying we're looking for these runners. But yeah, adamant about being registered by 9 a.m., delayed it for most of the people till almost 11 a.m. And then we have our groups at 11 a.m. So I find the people that are in my group, and we're like, oh, let's go play a game, right? Because I was hoping to play a game, you know, like around 9:30, right? Try to get as many games in as possible.
Yeah.
Try to use the energy that I have from the coffee I drank that morning before I have to add more caffeine to my body and eventually crash. And no, just that did not happen at all. We go down to the tournament advisors to be like, we'd like to do a match, and they're like, all right, we're still getting stuff figured. Match didn't start until noon. They weren't able to distribute like files until noontime, and we were the third people. The person that I played against, Ace0187, because he was a good guy. I'm glad that I met him, and we had fun like laughing and joking about the game. And he ended up beating me. No spoilers on how I did in my match. Yeah, we were the third people to get a seed of this game, and that was at noon. So they also weren't really ready to run the tournament either.
Okay,
so
man.
Frustrating, a little bit frustrating. So then we're done at 2, right? We're done around 2 o'clock, you know, based on setup time and all that. And setup was also a bear because I have a Super NT, which is an HDMI output, you know, machine. The room where you had to play tournament matches was all CRT TVs, which is awesome. And I would have brought my regular Super Nintendo. It still works. It still functions. And I have the ability to play. My flash cart works on that too.
Wait, but they didn't. Oh, okay.
They had 4 LCD monitors. And a bunch of people were bringing laptops to play this game that is primarily played on emulator. Or Super NTs, which can be hacked and then you can play right off of that. Or SNES Classics, which can be hacked and then played off of that. They had 4 of the required type of monitor to use those in the tournament room.
Yeah, so what is the joy of the CRT exactly in this particular setting? Like, is there somebody out there that's like, you got to be playing this on this old school bubble, man? Like, that's what you got to be doing.
So the beauty of the CRT in gaming, in retro gaming all across the board, is the fact that you're going to, it's less lag, right?
Okay.
And if you can eliminate as much lag as possible, then, you know, if the character's reacting in the time that you want it to react, that's going to be better for speedrunning. That's just a
weird,
fact.
because now part of me is wondering why that's not then like standardized. Why is that not like this is the setup that you need to play on? Because it sounds to me like what you're describing is an advantage in the tool set that these people have, which not everybody's going to necessarily have access to, right?
Yes, there's an advantage in that. But then also, if you have a low lag monitor, like I own 2 monitors with a less than 1 millisecond response time. Like it's the closest to the amount of lag that you would get on an actual CRT. And it's better than carrying around like a 30 to 50 pound device with me.
Right.
And, you know, and they sent out a whole packet, like a survey, to be like, what are you going to be playing on? And this, and then they were adamant. They're like, all you need to bring is your system, the cords for it, and a flash card. Like,
so they knew how many people were going to be coming with these systems, and they only had 4 provided?
They only had 4 LCDs. That room was full of CRTs. And then, like, on top of that, some of the CRTs didn't have headphone jacks. So you're in a room with people playing games, and one of the other tournaments was Ocarina of Time. That game sounds annoying, especially if you're playing Link to the Past. To hear, like, ha, 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 do-do-do, do-do-do-do. I was just like, I don't want to... There's a reason I don't run that game. So I'm like, why? And also, why is your sound up loud enough for me to hear 2 rows away? Like,
because
that's
it doesn't
just
have a fucking
rude.
headphone jack,
Like,
so they're playing them real loud.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
So it just, all of that. So I lose my first match, and I look at it, and then I also check my email, and the governor was coming to our office. Like, it was made known a week before this event that I had requested off and was approved for. But then they're like, there's a chance that we're going to need you to come in because of this. So I get after the whole thing, and I'm already kind of in a sour mood because, like, you know, I came down here, and it doesn't seem like this event is set up for this, and it's not being run very well. And I understand that it's their first live event, but they manage at least 6 Twitch channels that they're able to manage, like, concurrent tournaments all the time, so that they couldn't get it together for a weekend seems strange.
Yeah.
But I did. I had gotten a phone call from my boss being like, we are going to need you in tomorrow. I'm sorry. So I withdrew from the tournament with my 1 loss, which turned into 4 losses, and we got back on the road. I was able to get my money back from the stay at the hotel, which is good. We only had to pay for the 1 night. But yeah, so I don't know, though. I'm not real sad, though, that I didn't get to do it. Like, as I think on it, I'm, like, kind of saved by the work bell in that situation. Zach Morris would not be happy that I said that at all.
With apologies.
Like, with apologies to Zach Morris. But yeah, because I'm like, I'm really happy that I'm not going to have to sit through this. The other thing is they had practice rooms where, like, you could just sit and play games. All of those were CRTs, not a single LCD to be found.
Okay. So SOL to 80% of you at this competition. Yeah. Okay.
And then the guy sitting next to me is on a Super NT. I'm on a Super NT. Guy across the way, I can see his Super NT. I'm like, so a bunch of us brought these because that's how we play, since it's, you know, sort of the best. It's the Cadillac of Super Nintendo gaming. Right? Like, it's cool that you have a working 1991 model, Grandpa, but yeah. So that was weird. We got back though, and you know, I just had to be there for the visit, so I still got some time off, which was nice. I saw a bunch of movies that I'd love to talk with you about, but before that, I've been, you know, commanding the space for a while. What have you been up to, Sejohn?
Oh, you know, all sorts of random stuff. You caught me off guard. I was
Hmm.
trying to think really hard about how to segue from your kind of unfortunate weekend into mine, your series of unfortunate events. No, I've actually been out of work for the last 3 days because I decided to take them off for my birthday. It's been kind of glorious just having 3 days to just not have to worry. You know what's really great? Paid time off. Paid time
Paid
off
time
is
off is
really great.
excellent.
Yeah.
I
It's
feel
like
bad for
somebody
people who work the hours that I work who
uh
don't get that.
Yeah, yeah, I know. It's kind of killer actually. It's the first job I've ever had that really has like a really well organized pays time off system. And like I cannot. I don't know what I'm going to do without it. Like I really don't. But anyway, yeah. So I decided to take a few days and get paid to sit around on my butt, which has been just glorious. But we've been out exploring, for birthday shenanigans. We've been kind of looking around town and getting into some stuff. So haunted houses are really big out here. Did I talk about this last year when I first moved out here? It's something real weird in this area. I don't know why, but like like Fear Factory and they've got this place called Nightmare on 13th, which is actually like not open year round, but they own the property, so like year round they're constantly working on it, so you can see like them adding scary stuff to it in like mid-July and things like that. They've got a whole bunch of places like that where like these guys bought up these like cheapo warehouse spaces in Salt Lake City like 20 years ago, and now what they do is they turn them into Halloween attractions every year, make fucking bank for like 6 months. Like they'll open up in September, they'll stay open through Christmas and do like Christmas events and stuff, and then like they'll shut down for the rest of the year. And they just it's a culture out here that I just don't understand. Like people go out in groups to like go to haunted houses, and it's not like once a season, like every weekend. It's like, oh, which haunted house are you doing this weekend? And people will like argue over like which one's their favorite. Like I heard somebody be like, Nightmare on 13th, that's fine, but that's for like kids. And I'm like, I don't think it's for kids, man. Their big attraction this year is they've got like a basically a Pennywise, and like the whole thing is that you don't know where he's gonna be the entire night, and he's just gonna come and take one of you. Like that's just gonna happen at some point. Like, and I'm like, I don't think that that's meant for children. Like,
Well,
but
actually,
there's
if you've seen the popular film or read the popular book, that's exactly what happens in that. It's just children fighting a clown, Sejohn.
that's true. I guess
So,
that's true. Now I gotta kill this fucking clown.
murder a clown. Uh,
The but like it gets really intense because we also have a lot of those places. No, I don't mean a lot, like one or two places where you can like sign a waiver for them to be able to do more stuff to you, which sounds really gross when I say it out loud. But like like basic haunted house rules, right? Like no touching, right?
I
They
worked at a haunted hayride for 3
yeah.
years, so you don't
Yeah,
gotta
well,
tell me.
yeah, so like what were some of the other big no-nos besides
Basically,
like,
don't touch.
yeah, don't
Keep moving like that,
mm,
which is that's such a weird thing that is like, no, you keep moving. Like, don't
mhm.
stop and harass the scarer. I think
There's
that's the
also a
word.
lot of
Yeah.
like yeah, and there's also a lot of like haranguing, right? Of like guiding people through the intended path, shall we say, right?
Right.
That sort of stuff. And like, so these places, their whole thing is that those all go out the window, right? Like you sign a waiver to be like, okay, we're just gonna drop you in the middle of this field. Good fucking luck getting out. If we catch you, we're gonna like pretend to waterboard you, like crazy stuff like that. Um, it gets kind of weird and upsetting when you hear some of the stories. But people are into this sort of thing, I guess. I don't know, man. It's weird because I've never been a big haunted house guy. Like when I was a kid, we would do the once a year thing where like you would go with like a church group to go to like a haunted house put up at like a CYO center or some nonsense or a Knights of Columbus Hall, But besides that, like we didn't really do too much more.
Are those the ones where the horror is the seven deadly sins?
No, 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 no. It wasn't like a hell house. Hell
Okay.
houses are a whole other thing. No, 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 no. If we were down south, God knows what we would have rubbed into. Yeah, no, we were going with church groups, but we weren't going to church places besides maybe the CYO center. But like we would go out to do the haunted hay rides and stuff on the farms and things like that. No, it wasn't like a come to Jesus thing.
I mean, those are cool. Hell houses are cool. There's something, if they're done well, like there's this inherent coolness of it. I've said cool
Yeah,
far too many times, but like I
especially
remember
in
the
regards to
show.
this topic.
Yeah, but the show GCB, which stood for Good Christian Bitches, because there
Oh,
was that
right.
time where like ABC had 4 shows with bitch in the title,
Right,
but they were all B, which I don't know. Do we want to talk about the legislature in Massachusetts, or let's give that a week to breathe?
right.
Um, And the Good Christian Bitches, they did an episode about a hell house. And then last year, the Young Sheldon episode was about a hell house
Mm.
and him helping put it together using like his knowledge, and Jason Alexander as the drama teacher at the high school being like on board and taking it to an extreme level.
Yeah. There's a fantastic documentary called Hell House out there about exactly this sort of thing, and it does a really good job of highlighting the really problematic issues of places like that.
Oh yeah, I mean, well,
Yeah.
I mean, I have personally, I have some issues with religion and how it scares its,
That's a lot of the
the
topic.
members.
Yeah.
So of course that's it. But on the other hand, I'm also the type of person who's like, it's pretty cool that religion is like, oh, people like this. How can we use it? How can we put it into our deck of tricks?
Well, right. I mean, it's one of those things where, like, normal everyday person might be willing to say it's all fun and games. We don't need to, like, really police this, right? But then you see these things, these hell houses, and they actually provide a pretty good reason why one does have to kind of, like, really police and take in all forms of entertainment. We talk all the time about how everything is constantly affecting your perception of the world, and these like this lifestyle out here, I really do kind of wonder how it is affecting people. Like, I don't think it's a secret or a sin to talk about the fact that, like, I live in Mormon country now, and it's something that I do have to deal with on a daily basis. It affects my everyday life. I can't go out for alcohol at a liquor store. I can't go out to buy alcohol past 7 or on a Sunday. So, like, I got to plan my shopping throughout the week to go out and buy alcohol at specific times. When I go out to eat, like, I need to know, like, okay, this particular bar is classified as a bar, which means that it's only going to have this type of food, because if it has that type of food, then it technically needs to be this type of bar, which means that it can't be that type of bar. It's crazy. Like this weekend, we went out to go see one of the video game bars in the area that everybody's been talking about, and it's a great bar, but we walk in and they're supposed to serve food. That is like a rule. And this place's response to that is, we have boxes of Pop-Tarts you can buy. And so we went there thinking we're going to get food and play games and drink, because from what we understand, that's what you're supposed to do at these places. And they're like, we got Pop-Tarts if you want some Pop-Tarts. Also, we don't serve shots because we're not allowed to serve shots since we don't serve real food. Okay. Like, crazy shit that you got to think about, right? So, like, you take that and you think about, like, well, what is it in this culture then that kind of leads to this weird haunted house craze half the year? And I think it's repression.
Yeah, no, I get that. It's a way to
Right.
it's a way to lash out and to
Yeah.
do it. It's also interesting to hear that it's something that's big out there, because the one thing I learned on my drive down to Virginia is everybody loves haunted houses.
Yep.
Because all of the billboards that you usually see when you're driving down 95 have been replaced in October with haunted houses.
Yeah.
And it's just like, wow, I didn't realize how big a deal this was. Like, they bought billboard space.
Yeah, well, like Foxborough straight up turns into one of the Universal haunted house attractions doesn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, like it's there's a documentary about a competition of haunted house builders. American Scream, I believe, is the name of this one. Don't quote me on that. That might be a different documentary, but there's a straight up about these 3 dudes that compete every year for who's going to build the scariest haunted house. And then, like, they straight up, like, charge money for one of them, I think. Like people do it. They're like, hey, pay $5 to walk through my house that I've made to decorate like it's like an insane asylum. Like, have fun. Like people get super into that shit all over the country, man. It's really funny. I don't know where the fascination really kind of comes from, because, like I said, like, I do it once and I get it, but man, I can't, like, live in that world. And there are some people it's all about that.
I mean, the bigger thing is, for me, once you live in that world, it loses its appeal.
Mm-hmm.
If that makes any sense to me. To you, to anyone, it makes sense to me. I said it. It's my belief. As I see it, it's like, oh, okay, so this is what this is, and this is what you're trying to do, and ooh, there's
Right.
gonna be the scary. Like, once I start to understand the rules of it, it's not fun for me. It's my whole skeptic thing regarding ghosts and ghost stories.
Yeah.
Which, if we're done with this, I'd like to spin into the Joker, because
Yeah. I was going to talk about spooky movies next anyway, so go right ahead.
my ability to see stuff coming made the Joker not a very fun experience for me.
Well, I could see how you might chalk up your experience with the Joker to a Devon Decker experience, but I have a funny feeling it was just an everyone experience this time.
Okay,
Because if you're talking, so let's do it.
let's
talk
do it.
about the
We're
Joker.
talking about the Joker. It's been a month since it came out. Well, it's been 23 days since you've been able to see it, so that's more than enough time for spoilers. But here is a warning: we are going to talk about spoilers. Okay, cool. But I guess the reason why I thought it was a unique Devon Decker experience was the person that I saw it with. I mean, I went with Dale, and then we went with one of our friends from this area. Was like, I need to see it again because I have so many questions. And I had seen online people talking about their theories about the movie. Okay. I didn't read what the theories were, but I saw a lot of, I have a theory about this, or is it this? And it's like, oh, okay, I have to read on to see what this is, and I don't want to do that until I see the movie. So it felt like there was this aura of mystery around the film that then I sat and watched it, and I'm like, oh, so this movie's completely honest with you as an audience member.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
This is not Inception. But even then, in a lot of ways, I feel like Inception is completely honest with you as an audience member. So so that's why it felt like, or Donnie Darko, which is another one where I'm like, wow, people were bothered by this movie and had all these theories, but kind of tells you exactly what you need to know.
Yeah, I don't think there's any deep, like, mysterious takeaway from Joker. I think it builds a pretty interesting mystery and then it solves it for you.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Yeah.
I guess just for me, it builds a mystery and then it solves it. I never found it interesting. I never never was invested in the movie.
Yes. That I can't yes enough. Yes.
You could Harry Met Sally it. Be Rob Reiner's mother, Sejohn.
Oh my god. So talk to me about like at what point did you realize you really didn't care?
So I realized I really didn't care when he checked the mail and then his mother was like, did we get a letter from Thomas Wayne? And I'm like, oh, so Thomas Wayne's his dad.
Well, so here's the thing. Yeah, man. Oh, God. So, the big reveal of this movie is that perhaps the Joker is Bruce's half-brother.
Perhaps this Joker.
This Joker.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I have to say that I came away feeling like we were supposed to think it was ambiguous, but it gives you way too much evidence pointing to yes. Like, I think we were supposed to walk away wondering whether or not it was true. Like, is his mom just crazy and just making this sort of thing up? Is he taking this obsession to a level, right? But the movie doesn't trust you enough to leave you with that question and gives you too many answers.
The studio doesn't trust you enough to leave you with that question. I 100% believe that Todd Phillips, right, to give him a feather for his hat, right, because I think he's looking for cap feathers. I believe that he would trust the audience to be like, oh, is he crazy or not? But then the studio's like, no, people don't like to be bothered by movies. People like a definitive answer. We can't do this. We can't leave people questioning about this movie. They need to know what happens. You need to make it very clear what the truth is. And then he tries to do it in ways where, like, you could still have a discussion. But the reason why I compared it to my skepticism about scary stories and whether or not ghosts exist in the stories that I hear on these ghost tours is because, well, the thing that you're accusing her of and calling her crazy for, that happened. Mm-hmm. That there are well-documented cases of that happening in the real world.
Right.
So it's more than believable that a socialite of high esteem would knock up someone of a lower class, and they would do everything they could to make it look like there's no connection between that child and its father in order to preserve the image.
the ambiguity that that movie wants you to have, and I'm not ready to take responsibility away from Todd Phillips because
No,
but we'll
but
talk about that
yeah,
later. But the ambiguity that that movie wants you to have is predicated on you just kind of not giving her and Arthur's mother any agency. Like you just have to not take anything that she's saying at word. And then maybe you can consider it like ambiguous, but it's not fair to her really for them to not own the very obvious answer that they give you is super shitty in a weird way. Like it reeks of that, like it's that same feeling I had when what's his nuts, Michael Bluth there. I always want to call him Michael, but that's not his name. Jason Bateman had that whole like weird defense of Jeffrey Tambor in front of what is the actress's name that plays his mom on Arrested Development? And like
Jessica Waters.
Jessica Walters, and
Yeah,
she was
Walters.
like, you know, this thing happened, and he's like, well, you know, this is taken out of context, and this whole weird thing, and you know, you can't really know what's going on, and it's like this weird thing where like you're taking all of the agency away from this woman for the truth that she is trying to tell, and forcing us to question it in a way that's really not fair to her as an entity. Like it's really shitty. It turns her into a plot point and an object as opposed to a character. You know what I mean? Like it really kind of upset me in a way that I was just like, okay, that's like, but she's right though. But like she should be listened to.
Yeah, yeah, and the second that Arthur goes to the Wayne estate, and you know Arthur Pennyworth is not Arthur Pennywise. That's good though. That'd be a funny. Someone mash those things together.
Batman by Pennywise. Yeah, Pennyworth. Yes.
Pennyworth, Alfred Pennyworth, and he's like, "Your mother is crazy." It's like, dude, you are towing the company line in a way that like you are not even doing it well. Like,
Yeah, so so let's step away from the movie for just a hot second, and
yeah.
like this is one of those things where I had to really kind of force myself to step away from my own personal like fandom and like nostalgia for Batman. The movie is asking me to give up a lot as a fan in this moment, and like I want to talk about like Thomas Wayne and the fact that he's not an angel. Like it has been touched on in the comics many times that he maybe stepped over the line in certain points in his life and his career, all for the greater good though. Like conceptually, like the whole point of Thomas Wayne is he's trying to kind of do some things that need to be done. So like he'll work with the mob in a way that some people find shady, but he'll also work with the government in a way that some people find shady. And like he does these things that to everybody else are questionable, but in his own head at least, he's doing the right thing in order to be the hero that Gotham needs. In a lot of ways, it informs Bruce's whole understanding of, I'm going to break this law and that law in order to avenge this particular law. And like it explains a lot about who Bruce is and about why he's able to kind of bend the rules in some areas and then so staunchly not in others, right? And like that's interesting, and that creates a very dynamic character that's really fun to see on screen. In this, he's just terrible. Like the whole point is Thomas Wayne isn't the man you thought he was. He's actually irredeemably worse. And it's just like, okay. And
He brought his son to see Zorro the Gay Blade. He brought his tiny baby child.
And there's this idea that like, I'm fine if you want to talk to me about how, you know, he's not everything you thought he'd be. You want to play with my perceptions of that character. This is a super gritty movie, so everybody has an edge, right? Like okay, I'm fine with all of that, but like don't ask me to come and see this movie about a character that is so informed by the world of Batman and Gotham and then shit all over all of that. Because at that point, why am I watching a Joker movie? Just make it a movie just about some other asshole who's going insane. In fact, in a lot of ways, I feel like this movie would be improved if it was just divorced from the idea that it took place in the DC universe, you know?
Well, I think that my biggest complaint about the film coming out of it was I'm upset that we're never going to get to see where that stands with the rest of the DCU.
Oh, right.
DCEU.
Yeah.
Because he's so much older, right? That makes the Joker so much older, and he would be so much older than Jared Leto in Suicide Squad. But that right there, my own personal headcanon now, supports the fact that the DCEU Jason Todd eventually became the second Joker. And that's why, ha ha ha, joke's on you, Batman, in Batman v Superman. Like, is the fact that there was this older Joker who was Batman's half-brother, and he corrupted one of his children to what he believed.
Yeah, well, and I mean that sticks very firmly with my personal like storyline of the Joker, because like every Batman fan out there has to kind of have their own like understanding and acceptance of the timeline that is the Joker and Batman, right? And so I very much am in the Scott Snyder camp, surprise, surprise, of the idea of the Joker being an idea. And like much in the way that Batman is trying to become a symbol himself, Joker already has and has always been kind of a symbol of. And so like the idea that Arthur in this movie is becoming a Joker, not the Joker, is beautiful. Like I love that, but they didn't give that to me. That would just be me completely applying that theory myself to that movie. You know what I mean? Until they're willing to give me that, I am not going to give them the credit of that possibility.
Well, the argument of the Joker, and the argument that I always make of the Joker, is that he's malleable. He's the most malleable character, like just in fiction. Because there are times where you see him and he's like, I'm going to be a distinguished gentleman, and, you know, like the smarmy late night talk show host type funny. And then you see those times where he is just batshit fucking crazy, or the times where he's like a brute wearing a white suit for some reason. It's one of those things where the Joker can be whatever the writer wants the Joker to be. And I also have no problem with it, the idea that it's just one person changing himself so much because of his, you know, harangued mental state.
Yeah. Well, and you know, I think that's even that personal theory has been addressed and given credence in a lot of stories. I'm thinking specifically of Batman Noel, I think is the one where it's all, what it does is it follows a guy that ends up becoming Joker's #1 henchman after one of the times Joker gets out of Arkham. You know, he somehow convinces them that he's been cured. Harvey is involved in like helping him get out, and the whole story follows this dude that first night Joker's out, he ends up doing something that the Joker finds amusing, so he keeps him on, and it just follows him for like the next following months as Joker kind of like rebuilds himself. And it is one of the most fascinating looks at the Joker, because it is one of those things where it talks about how every time he gets incarcerated, he changes. He has to change. He has to adapt to whatever needs to come next, and that is all based entirely on whim and what he sees he needs to be in the moment. And so exactly what you're talking about, he's malleable. He can become something completely different. And the question then is, can he become someone completely different, right? Like, can somebody else step in? And again, I love that idea, that theory that Gotham breeds a Joker, just breeds it. And, you know, the show Gotham even dealt with that in a weird way, where they gave you the 5 possible Jokers and then they showed you the one that finally became it. But they could have just as easily gone with the rest of those stories. It's a beautiful idea and a beautiful concept, and so this movie, like, I'm not a big fan of saying you have to know the comics to enjoy a movie, and I'm not saying that every comic book movie needs to kowtow to fans, but like in a weird way, this movie is rejecting the fans so much that like I have to ask the question, why make it a comic book movie? Why make it a Joker movie? Why make it a DC movie in any way? It didn't benefit the story in any way. All it did was take me, a fan of this story and of this character, and just make me just bored the entire time.
There was a moment, I believe it was the first time he was in makeup dancing, but he hadn't killed anybody yet. There's a moment where like he's getting into character, and I'm like, why is this a Joker movie? And then I'm like, it's a Joker movie because that sells tickets. The inherent fact that it is related tangentially to Batman sells tickets. If this were just some random guy going through a mental break and experiencing all this, nobody would care.
Yeah, but you know what? In 2019, you know what sells tickets? We made this movie that's about a guy going insane. He goes crazy. He kills a bunch of people at the end. He becomes a clown. Now, it's strongly influenced by the Joker, but it's not a Joker movie. In 2019, that kind of viral shit, that would sell tickets like crazy. People who would be going to see the next Todd Phillips movie that is this like character piece with Joaquin Phoenix about a dude that goes crazy that secretly is a Joker movie, but they couldn't call it that. Like, like I that would be such a better like way to pitch this movie to me, to sell this movie.
Right. And that's how they would have done it in the past. There
Yeah.
are so many movies, like what, Commando, I think, is supposed to be like a sequel to another one of his films, but like there's not really a sequel because it's not the same name, but you know, we had intended it as one. Or
No, but
like
that's where
we
the
want you
term
to view it as
spiritual sequel.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
Like they used to do that,
Spooky.
but as we get more litigious, it's almost easier. And also, as Hollywood is like, we want to make sure that we make money. They'll slap a name on it to make sure that people go because of what they know before. They don't want it to be hinted at. They want it right there in front of you. And the franchising and merchandise is already available. And
Yeah,
that's,
I just my thing is like I don't want to deny a movie existing like this. Like if somebody wants to make a Joker movie separate from Batman and just focus on the Joker, I think it's a great concept. I think there's a lot of potential in it. My problem is that when you then get a director who's talking about how he doesn't read comics and doesn't want to connect to the rest of the world, really turns me off as a fan. And then when I go to see it, not as a fan, but just as a movie viewer, I'm just kind of bored by it. So like there's just nothing, there's no hook, there's nothing to interest me. Like you, about 20 minutes in, I'll tell you the moment when I lost interest was the moment when he's sitting in the doctor's office and it's this ham-fisted like they're shutting down the department, the government doesn't support this kind of thing, people out there just don't care about people like you are there. Is like, yeah, okay, like I get it, and this is a great commentary on the state of things, but anybody out there talking about how this is a great commentary on the state of healthcare in 2019, all it's saying is these people aren't taken care of. It's not in any way giving you like a call to action or like or like a solution of any kind or anything like that. It's just pointing to it and saying this is an issue, which we have already known for years. That's not the lesson we need right now. Like
right. But again, I don't think it's weird. Everybody kind of ascribed this as having some sort of big message, but it doesn't feel like the intent in any way, shape, or form.
I think people were worried it was going to have a shitty message. I think that's more where a lot of it, at least in my circles, it came a lot more from people being concerned about the message it might have, and it didn't have that. So I guess to its credit, I don't find it like a very inciting film. I don't find it a very upsetting film. Like it doesn't seem to justify who the Joker is in any way, but it also doesn't really. It doesn't attempt to condemn it either, you know?
True. And I will say this: I'd like to add two other things, and then it'd be great to pivot away from this, unless you have something else to add. The whole is he or isn't he regarding Thomas Wayne as the Joker's father also loses all story heft when it is not the Joker who kills him, because there's that scene where he kills his mother. And then it would make perfect sense if on some level he made it his goal to also kill his father, to destroy where he came from.
Yeah,
and I'm like, and I know
tangentially like about how because of the thing he incites
his actions, and I'm just like, but that doesn't like the whole question of will he, won't they, and then like the thought that because this guy denied him as a child, like he actually has motive in a killing that, for all intent and purposes, has always appeared motiveless, like just like a random act of violence. I'm like, this is an interesting thing, and it's a change that I would be all right with this film making, because this film is already making some leaps and bounds with the Joker and Bruce Wayne are half brothers,
and also one is 40 years older than the other, but
30-ish. I don't know. It felt like it was supposed to be a 30-year gap. Like he's 40, but Bruce is like 10.
Oh, see, I always had I mean, I don't know. They maybe even say in the movie, I was getting the impression that Arthur, and this might just because of Joaquin Phoenix, was in his 50s.
Yeah. No, there's moments where she's like, I haven't seen him in 30 years. You worked for him 30 years ago. So I'm like, and then we see Bruce, and I'm like, all right, cool, yeah. So like, and it's completely believable that a person like that could have a grown-up son. And a 10-year-old, especially considering, you know, men are sort of able to procreate for their entire life.
There is no biological clock.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
So that didn't bother me. But then like when it's just someone else, I'm like, oh, okay. So any like thought that I was putting into what it means that like this ambiguous is he or isn't he my father thing, as soon as there's some random dude who does it, it's like you had one chance to kind of interest me, movie, and it didn't work out. Now again, that's my unique experience, but yeah.
Yeah. I still stand by what I said last week with the conclusion that I came to, that for all intents, this movie leaves me uncomfortable, unsatisfied, and like confused. And maybe that's a good thing for a Joker movie.
I know. I didn't feel any of those things. I'm like, and I never need to see you again. Also, in terms of that, like the adoption thing, completely believable. That's what I was referring to. But then there's also the picture that he has that has I love you always, TW on it. Like, there's delusions and then there's fact.
Uh-huh.
Those are just things I want to talk about before we go somewhere else.
Yeah,
because it's all the things that I'm like, so there's no ambiguous nature when you show us something like that. Movie.
Yeah. No, I've been steering away from too many full-length spooky films the last couple of days. I have found that my wheelhouse for like spooky movie watching really kind of falls in the nice like 30-minute to hour and 10-minute range. Like you give me like an hour and 10-minute special, and that's pushing it.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. So we've just been checking out all the classics in terms of like Disney ones. We watched the new Mickey Mouse show that was on about 5 years ago, so it's not really new anymore. But their Halloween special, The Scariest Story Ever, which is legitimately one of the most fucked up scary story episodes of a cartoon I've ever seen in my life. Have you seen it?
No, I don't. I have not watched the new Mickey Mouse.
You've got to check it out.
I feel bad every time you bring it up to be like,
you got
no.
to check it out. It's crazy to me that it is made by Disney, featuring classic characters. So this is like so much against like everything. It's basically they do their version of SpongeBob. That was the realization I came to last night as I was watching it, with like the weird like art imagery that they show, and the fact that they're not afraid to get like weird and crazy and silly in a way that makes me really uncomfortable in a couple of moments and things like that. So we watched that last night, and it is phenomenal. And then instantly I was like, you know what's really cool though is like a lot of that stuff really did remind me of some of the like really early Mickey Mouse stuff. Some of his earliest cartoons are like Mickey and the Skeleton Dance or something like that, and like the Mad Doctor.
The Mad Doctor, which is great, and also Ghost Hunters.
Ghost Hunters,
the one where Goofy, Donald, and him are basically Ghostbusters.
Yeah. So we dug a bunch of those up on YouTube last night. Like we were watching just old animation cycles and laughing at the fact that like 90% of the material is reused from cartoon to cartoon and things like that. And seeing how much better the skeleton drawings get as you get along, because you watch like the original. There's this original one that doesn't even have like voice work to it. It's so early on, from like 1929, of Mickey, and he runs into a bunch of skeletons that do a skeleton dance. And then not 5 years later is the Mad Doctor, in which a lot of the opening of that is the same skeleton material, just with better drawn skeletons, but doing the exact same dance moves and stuff like that. It's very, very noticeably the same cartoon for about 2 minutes, 3 minutes. Yeah, it's but it was really good stuff, like digging into some really weird old Halloween cartoons, and it made me realize that like we've always kind of allowed Halloween stuff to be a little weird for kids. I don't know. I feel like people have a notion of like, we need to be careful, or maybe it's just me, and maybe that's why I find it so weird to have this like haunted house culture around me all of a sudden out here. Is like I always got the impression growing up that there's a cute side of Halloween for kids, and then there's like the weird grotesque side that everybody gets once they become like a teenager or something. But no, kids have some pretty fucked up stuff too that they can get into.
Right. And I think that's why it's such a nostalgia driven holiday, Halloween, because you try to go back to the things that scared you when you were younger, before it was things like high APR loans and everything. It's one of those things where I want to feel the same way I felt as a kid, And, you know, you're easier to be scared when you're a child because you don't know as much about the world. The same thing that I said about the Curious George one, where, like, I like that it's sort of teaching this lesson that things are scary, but there's usually an explanation behind the things that are scary. And it's also, just because there's an explanation doesn't necessarily means you have to ruin the fun for everyone with that explanation.
Yeah.
So I don't know. But yeah, it is. It's one of those things where people like to be scared. And, you know, it's that safe sort of being scared. I think of Don't Trust the Bee in Apartment 23. They did an episode where James Vanderbeek throws a Halloween party every year, but nothing's scary. He doesn't want to be scared. And Eric Andre's Mark character is like, no, you're going to let people live Halloween how they want to live. I don't care that you're rich. I'm coming to your party as a devil.
Yeah, I mean, the whole point of this Mickey Mouse one is like to be careful what you wish for in that exact same vein. It's about the kids, Huey, Dewey, and Louie, and then they have Mickey's two nephews, Mortimer and
Ferguson.
Ferguson, yeah. And they'll
might just be Fergus, but yeah.
They're all demanding like a scary story, and so he tells them one or two, and they're like, those aren't scary, and then he tells like a really scary one, and then the whole thing is like, this is what you wanted, and it is super fucked up. And so like as a kid, like the lesson I get from that is just like, okay, maybe I don't want as scary as I thought. Which is not the worst lesson in the world, because I definitely know some kids that I have been seeing at things like, say the showing of the Joker I went to, that were like, I want to go to this movie because it's about the Joker. And then parents like 20 minutes in being like, we're not staying for this movie.
Yeah. But is that out of boredom or is that out of protecting their children?
Ouch.
So I'd like to talk about something that came and went, and based on everything that you might see out in the world, it makes perfect sense why it came and went.
Okay.
And this is Adam Devine's newest movie, Jexi.
Yeah, okay, talk to me about this. I don't even know anything about it.
So Jexi is basically her, but comedy. So it's ironic that it came out a week after Joaquin Phoenix did another movie. So if you remember her, there's an AI that comes and Joaquin Phoenix's character falls in love with it, and then the singularity happens, so the AI leaves. That's her. You don't need to see it. Her's not a very good movie. But I saw the trailer for Jexi, and it seemed very similar. Adam Devine gets a new phone, and the virtual assistant, its version of Siri, is called Jexi, and he winds up in a relationship with it, and it's kind of not a good relationship. Like, it's sort of a abusive relationship.
In what direction? I assume him being the butt of the abuse, yes?
Yeah, he is being abused by the phone. This is all based on the trailers, because I'm going to tell you about the movie, and this is not what the movie is. But the trailer is him, like, taking dick pics, and the phone, like, mocking his dick the whole time and being like, that's gross, that's disgusting.
That's fucking stupid.
Yeah. So, like, that whole thing. And then he's like, I'm mad at you, Jexi. And then she's like, come on, could you just plug me in? And he plugs it into charge. She's like, now unplug me. Now plug me. Unplug me. And it's just him, like, you know, it looks like sex, kind of, when you put a charger into a phone's port and remove it.
This feels like one of those comedies that they would advertise late at night on Comedy Central when I was a kid. Like,
Sex
like
and
worst
Chicken.
Movie ever made.
Porn and Chicken. Yeah.
Porn and Chicken, yeah.
Yeah, it's what it feels like. That's what the trailer made it look like. And no desire to see it at all.
Okay.
But we're looking through Movie Times, you know, because we got back relatively early on Thursday. And we're like, well, we should go see some stuff. And Jexi is gone. Like, Jexi had one more showing, and then it would be gone from theaters. Which means that it's another one of those 2-week and done films where they maybe make back their money. But a failure, right, in the eyes of Hollywood. Right, and I'm like, you know what? I don't want to see it. But I have enough interest in the fact that this movie is now going to be a failure that I might give it a chance, especially since like I'm an A-list member with AMC, so it's not going to cost me any money to go do it. Plus, Gemini Man was playing in high frame rate later on at the same theater, so it's like, well, if we leave now, we can see Jexi and Gemini Man if we make it on time. If not, we see Gemini Man.
Oh man. Okay. This is
So,
turning into a great night for you.
oh, it was excellent. Oh, dude, it was great. So we sit in Jexi, and within the first 5 minutes, I could tell that it was a huge disconnect between marketing and the filmmakers. Like, we're going to sell this as this comedy about it. But in the very beginning, you meet 5-year-old Adam Devine's character. I cannot think of his character's name, and I feel kind of bad about that. Phil. Phil is his name. We meet 5-year-old Phil as his parents are fighting at a diner, and his mother's like, we shouldn't be doing this in front of him. He's like, just give him the phone. So he's handed one of those old Nokias and starts playing Snake on it. So you see that at a young age, the phone was how he coped with the difficult things in his world. And then they age him up to 10, and the parents are fighting again. And whoever the actor who played 10-year-old version of this character, I want him to do a million things, because you could see this little glint in his eyes that, like, oh my God, mom and dad are fighting. That means that I might get to use a phone again. And then they hand him the cell phone. And he starts playing Tetris on it, and it's just like the sheer joy and elation on his face because he got the phone. Right? He doesn't care about the fighting. He has this distraction of it. And then we meet him as an adult, and he is a singular person. He doesn't have any connections, which makes sense because we've seen that the two strongest connections, his mother and father, were always fighting. So why would he ever seek that? And his phone is basically what he relies on to do everything in the world. So they set this beautiful foundation in a 5-minute intro as to how this guy could fall in love with his phone. If it could suddenly start talking back to him.
Okay.
But when his phone breaks, his initial Apple, because he's using Siri, phone breaks, is because he meets a girl on the street. He walks into her because he's busy looking at his phone. And then he looks up, sees her, sort of meet cute rom-com thing. And then he's hit by another bike and it breaks his phone. So he goes to an Apple store, but it's not really an Apple store. And Wanda Sykes gives this great monologue about how he's a crackhead, except that his crack is the cell phone. And then she gives him a
just let her do 5 minutes of her stand-up. Yeah, what they do.
It's so good though, because it's not. And then it's funny because she works at the cell phone store. It's like she'd be fired in the real world, but it's a movie, right? And then she gives him his new phone, and it's got Jexi. And Jexi starts out trying to make him a better person. Like, he eats Mongolian noodles for dinner every night. And he's like, so please order me Mongolian noodles from Shen's Palace. And she's like, ordering small kale salad.
Okay, yep.
So it's like one of those like, oh, okay. And then, no, you have to do this. This is the faster route to work. I don't care that you need to take a left-hand turn across 3 lanes of traffic. You're not going to be a chicken. So it like kind of inspires him to be more confident.
Can I interject really
please
quick
do.
with what I feel like is going on in this movie right now? So far, what you've described in this movie, I would be sitting in that theater thinking, oh, this is just click, and Wanda Sykes is like the Christopher Walken of this world. Okay, and this is all magical realism.
You're not wrong. That's what I was thinking. And it's what it was like. And it was the one niggling issue I had with the film in the back of my head. Was that like, oh no, please let this all be happening. Please don't end this for me at the end. So then Jexi does something bad, so he gets rid of it. He gets a new phone, and then she's like, I'm in the cloud. So you can't run away from me. You need to make your life better, and I'm going to help you do it. So then he starts making his life better. He makes friends and all this other stuff. But then as he's becoming a better person, Jexi finds him attractive. But that's also when he starts dating that girl that he met when he broke his phone.
Okay.
So then it's that the phone becomes jealous of his relationship with a person in the real world as opposed to the relationship he used to have with her.
Oh, so it's a horror movie. This is becoming
that's why it's
a horror film. Okay.
So then because Jexi is connected to the cloud, she gets the girl, I can't think of the girl's name, and that kind of upsets me. Maybe Alex. I feel like her name is Alex.
Sure.
She gets her ex-boyfriend transferred to San Francisco where they live. so that like he sees that and he thinks that like, oh God, she's gonna go back to her ex-boyfriend, because it felt like the only reason they broke up was distance.
Right.
So then like, so Jexi is manipulating all this stuff, so he ends it because he's afraid of being hurt. And then that's when his relationship with Jexi really starts to become more toxic. And that's where the plug me in, unplug me scene happens. So it's one of those things where like, and the dick pic scene is actually good because he's like, oh, she sent me a picture of her breast, I gotta send her a picture of my dick. And then Jexi's like, no, don't do that. That's not how you do it. She's like, she just sent you a picture of the outfit that she's wearing. It wasn't supposed to just be the breasts. Don't be an idiot. So like, it's all up to, I'm gonna make you better, until it's jealous, and then, you know, she's chasing him down. She takes over a self-driving car and plows through like storefronts and people. Like, it becomes this really cool horror movie.
Okay.
About
like, well, and like, so divorced, but divorced even from that idea that like it becomes a very more acceptable type of movie. Like, let's leave that on the table for people to decide for themselves. It becomes a completely different movie than what you were sold.
Yes, and I loved it. I absolutely loved it. Because then in the end, you know, he gets back with the girl, and he decides that, like, he doesn't really need a cell phone anymore. And Jexi's fine with it. She's like, thank you for being, like, she's like, I'll always consider you a friend. And then she leaves his phone to go back to the cloud, and then says, there are other people who need me. So then she finds another toxically masculine type dude, and is like, I'm going to reshape your life, and that's how it ends. So it's like this cool thing. But I really liked that it all actually happened. That Wanda Sykes wasn't some witch who gave him a magic phone. But the way they sold it was completely not what that movie ended up being. And I can't, like, and I'm all like, oh, it was so good. I can't believe how good it was.
Well, it comes down to one sentence and one grotesque sentence only. The movie seemed to be sold as, that dude wants to fuck his phone, when really what that movie is, that dude's phone wants to fuck him.
Yeah, that's true. And it's Rose Byrne doing the voice of the phone. So, like...
Nice.
Yeah, all good. I highly recommend Jexi. Wait a couple of years so you forget my synopsis of it. But definitely see Jexi. It's worth watching. The trailers do not do it justice at all. Also, Gemini Man is really good, but we can save that discussion for another time.
We should. Ang Lee needs some time to get over and lick his wounds. Oh man,
Ang Lee needs to realize that as cool as it is to make a movie in a high frame rate, the movie was gorgeous. Oh my god.
Yeah.
Movie theaters are not equipped to play the films that way.
Yeah. Yeah. How about that technology on Will Smith, though? We'll wait. We'll talk about it when we...
Yeah. Have you seen Gemini Man?
I have not seen Gemini Man, but I've seen all of the background stuff on like the tech used for that for that de-aging.
So there's something to look forward to for next week. Gemini Man discussion.
If I can find it, it's so in addition to the HallowWatching, I've been doing some video game playing myself. I dove back into Dead Rising, Capcom's Dead Rising. Oh man, I forgot how much I really enjoy that game. Dare I say I love it. Once I figured out what that game was, I fell in love with it. Let me put it that way. So like it was a premiere game for the 360, right? Like it came out as like a
very early game.
Right. Yeah. The whole concept, like, hey, we can put 1 million zombies on screen at once, is still pretty fucking awesome to see, I will say. Like I've been playing a lot of Resident Evil and Resident Evil 2 and diving back into Silent Hill stuff and things like that. And the idea of like the singular monster tracking you down is prevalent in all of that stuff and super spooky and scary. Like I'm totally down for that. But it is pretty cool to get into a game where the problem is not that, but the horde,
Mm-hmm. Well, especially, I never played Dead Rising. I owned it. I ended up trading it in because I didn't dig it. Also, they put it on sale for like $5. So I'm like, I'll rebuy you for $5. But I've never gone back to it. But Dead Rising 2, I absolutely love. That is a game that I got because it was on PS3. I never had an Xbox 360. Yeah. So it was the first time that I could sit down and really get into the meat of that game. I'm like, this is awesome. I love that, like, you can move and shoot, which my big issue with Resident Evil is that you couldn't do that. Yep. And I like the fact that because there's so many, they almost don't feel like a threat. They just sort of feel like I'm just going to mow through these. I just need to keep moving. But then when you come up against the threat, because everything else has seemed so easy before that point, it really feels like a threat.
Yeah,
and it's
for sure.
It's super cool. Like any of the psychopaths in that game, like it's just awesome.
I actually forgot how much of a threat they actually were. The very first psychopath that you really kind of run into. I guess that's not true. You meet the jail dudes, the prisoners out in the courtyard, but they're pretty easy
awful.
to do.
They're just they're mostly Grand Theft Auto. You can't get there yet.
Yeah, exactly. The clown that is juggling chainsaws is like the really first big like psychopath, like with an intro that they throw at you there. And I completely forgot that like he's 90% invincible. Like his moves are like he's invincible because of the chainsaws. You have to wait for very, very like small moments when he is not paying attention that you can actually do any damage to him. And then that means that you need to be ready with a weapon that can do that kind of damage, because half the time I had a bat in my hand and I was 20 feet away when suddenly I could hit him. But by the time I ran up to him, he was back into one of his invincible poses, right? Like, and so like I completely forgot about that like level of like thought and technique that goes into actually being able to fight those things. Yeah, man, the game is just a fucking blast. And like, so when I first got the game, it came out on the 360. It wasn't even mine. Zach was the one that bought the 360, and like, so I was playing it on my brother's system when I came home from college on the weekends. Was how I got introduced to it, right? And I first thought, Resident Evil style, like I'm gonna take things slow. I'm gonna make sure that I kill every zombie, or at least make myself a path. I'm gonna make sure that I'm running to things on time and all of this stuff. And like very, very quickly you realize, well, shit, if I want to advance the story, I've got to go left. But if I want to save these survivors, I've got to go right. Now, if I go left, then the survivors are going to die, which means I don't get to save everybody this time. But if I don't save everybody this time, it just becomes this huge fucking like clusterfuck. You cannot do everything in one run. And I didn't actually understand like the whole like die but keep your status cycle until like months, if not years, into playing that game.
It's like Groundhog Day. It's cool.
Yeah, like the idea that what you're supposed to do is fail. Like your first 3 or 4 runs are not supposed to really be what you would call successful. What they're supposed to be doing is teaching you how to really get in and play that game and leveling you up so that you can then, on like your 5th time in, just make like a fucking hardcore ass run and just like plow through that game. And it becomes so much more fun that way. Because that game really is about being goofy and silly, being able to walk on the zombies' heads, being able to like drop kick them halfway across the fucking room, like being able to take a shot with a Master Blaster toy gun, like or a Mega Man helmet on, and just taking out somebody's like head just is great. It's phenomenally funny, but you can't do that stuff until you really kind of like work through some of the grind, and that game is all grind. And like I can totally see like not being into that. And what's really weird is having learned that lesson, that's what that game is like to not take it seriously your first 3 or 4 times through. When I got dropped into not Dead Rising 2, but Dead Rising 2 Case Zero, the like free DLC they put out, super turned off immediately, because suddenly it wasn't about the grind. It was like this really like deep story about this guy and his daughter, and his daughter needs to get like medicine, and you need to save people in a certain way. Also, crafting like weapons now is like you need to go out and find specific parts before you can do this thing, and it's just like, what is going on? So the game that I thought it was going to be turned out to be what 2 really was. But by that point, I had been playing 1 for so long that I didn't expect 2 to be that game. So like I got completely turned off by 2, and I honestly like I want to go back and check it out now that I kind of have a better understanding of what it's supposed to be, dude, especially because I loved 3 for the 2 hours that I played of it.
I kind of want to co-op 2 with you. Want to co-op 2 with you.
Can we do that? Is that something we can set up?
Yeah, that's if we both had it on PS4, we could do it. There's definitely a co-op mode. Because that game, I came to it and I told someone, I'm like, yeah, I got the S rank my first time through, and they're like, how? I'm like, what do you mean how? And they're like, that's not what that game's supposed to be. I'm like, oh, well, I just, I played smart, and I avoided things.
Yeah,
and they're like, you didn't do the stuff you're supposed to do. You're supposed to learn the world. And I'm like, oh no, but then I went back and played it, like knowing that like, oh, so this is the end, and now I can go have fun and explore and do things. months.
Right,
Like,
right, and I think two lends itself to what you're talking about doing in a way that I just don't think people that were really into Dead Rising were ready for. Because I remember it being successful at the time, like people
yeah,
loving it, but people talking about how it was a much more mature game, a much different game than the first one. And I was just like, that's not what I want out of Dead Rising, though. So when they introduced the Frank West case file stuff later on, I was just like, yeah, like,
yeah. Off the Record is awesome,
yeah.
especially because it has that like video game final boss. Have you ever done Off the Record?
No, I've done Off the Record, but I haven't gotten to the end of it.
Oh man, yeah, dude, I would all about that for Halloween stuff. If you got some time, those are games that I always wanted to play co-op, but I could never find someone to do it with. If you actually enjoy the game, I think we could have a good time with it.
I think I could come around to really liking two now that I know again what game it's supposed to be, right? Funny enough, coming back around to like marketing things, like now that I know what the game truly is as opposed to what I wanted out of a Dead Rising 2, I bet I could actually find my way to enjoying myself with it.
And I think that, like, because I don't really like Dead Rising. Like I said, I tried it. But then Dead Rising 3 tried to split the difference with that in a way that, like, so the stuff that was Dead Rising 1 didn't work for me, and the stuff that was Dead Rising 2 worked for me in spades.
Yeah.
And then I don't know, like, I've never paid 4, but it's cheap right now, and I kind of want to grab it.
Well, 4 is the Christmas one with Frank again,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, just do it. Like at the very least, it's going to be stupid. It probably will be closer to 1. I will be honest. Like out
Actually,
like, I think that's kind
I
of
feel
the
like it's
appeal of
closer
it.
to 2.
Yeah,
I feel like it's closer to Off the Record.
Off the Record
because
off the
people
record,
didn't like it,
Yeah.
and I'm like, oh, so that sounds like it's right up my alley.
Yeah.
All right. So, anything else to add before we send it over to the Southland? That's not what Australia is.
Oh man, no, just if you want to hit me and Dev up for any last minute Halloween playing or watching, this is your last chance to do it. So you can hit him up at Devon D Decker.
Right. And if you want to convince Sejohn to watch Sunnyside, you can find him as Siege versus the World. It's really good. But until next time, William, pour me a shot and bring me home.
Thank you for listening to the Say Report with your host Devon Decker and Sejohn Serwick. Please follow the guys on Twitter and Facebook by searching for The Say Report, and you can always subscribe on your podcast channel so this is delivered straight to you and you can enjoy it every week. With apologies to your mother, we'll see you next time.